today we are discussing witchcraft and D&D, which is to say witchcraft and Dungeons and Dragons. But Meg and I couldn't do this conversation alone. We had to invite the rest of our current D&D adventuring party to the table, who also happen to be professional occultists and practicing witches. It's very much an oops, all witches game. So joining the Coven today, we have our beloved friends, D&D comrades, and professional peers, Meg Keane and Sasha Ravitch. Yay. And I am going to embarrass both of you by sharing the bios I wrote for you to introduce you to any of our listeners who may somehow not know who the fuck you are.
We talk about you both all the time.
So Meg Keane, they, is an astrologer and herbalist who specializes in the 5th, 11th house axis and who writes so beautifully on so many things, but perhaps especially the relationships between planets, stars, and plants. And Meg and I collaborated on a 4-hour lecture that explored creativity through all 12 houses of the birth chart, which I will link in show notes. And then last but not least, Sasha Ravitch, her, is a witch, a seer, and a teacher of stellar witchcraft, a field she pioneered. I know that I have learned so much from my readings with Sasha, in which she scryed my ancestors, as well as spirit courts of my creative work. And she herself is a gifted writer of all things weird and horror and fairy tale, who is finishing her own MFA here in New York City. And together, Sasha and Meg are co-authoring a forthcoming book from Ravitch Press on desire and the Hydra constellation, which I know we are fucking stoked for.
So
anything y'all would add in the moment?
No, just how dare you?
This is the danger of you saying yes to be on this podcast. We're going to immediately start with praise.
Anything I missed in your bios that's especially important for folks to know before we get into it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you didn't include Jelly Bean, and please will be hearing about that later.
How
Other than that, it was.
I should have included your beloved. What do we call Jelly Bean? Your pet,
my biological son. Yeah,
your biological son who accompanies us at the D&D table and
blesses the dice, saves the day sometimes.
Saves the day.
Screams for bloodshed.
Yes,
I don't have him. I should have him here.
I'm shocked you don't actually.
I am also shocked.
Jelly Bean should be joining us. Yeah, we're gonna. Although maybe there wouldn't be enough violence for him, so
he might not be fed by this conversation the way that we will be.
At the table, for those listening at home, Jelly Bean is a stuffed animal, a small stuffed animal cat. Just in case you think that in my little sabbatical ended up having an actual human child. No.
Although I'd like you to soft launch. Oh, I had this.
Literally, just get away. We could
like BTW.
Online and other fucking.
So before we completely let loose and get into it, and fair warning, I think that listeners of the pod are aware that my wife and I, because we do have 2 Megs on this conversation, so I'm going to be aggressively saying my wife by way of differentiation, and I don't know what the rest of you are going to do. But folks know that we have a Sagittarius Mercury. Meg has a Gemini Mercury. Sasha's a Sag rising. So just wait till we get going. It's going to be like fucking chaos over here. But before we super get into it, I wanted to give listeners who may be vaguely aware that Dungeons and Dragons is a thing, but are like, what is it? And why would we talk about witchcraft with it? I just wanted to do a really super quick, tight 50-second orientation. Because whenever someone asks me what D&D is, I just say it's adults playing make-believe. Because at the end of the day, that is kind of all there is. Yes, there are rules. Yes, we roll dice. We also do have a dungeon master or DM, also sometimes called a game master, who's a person who is the director and is deciding what we're doing for the day. And we can talk about our beloved DM later on, who is Meg Keane's wonderful partner, who is not a witch, but is DMing for Oops All Witches. And that's a whole thing.
Sasha's face.
Yeah, exactly. I really hope they watch the video version of this so they can see the expressions we make when we're and such.
Yeah,
So
we have questions.
Perhaps a matter of semiotics there.
Genuinely, that seems to be what's happening. But yeah.
But I will just say that D&D at its heart is embracing the power of make-believe. It is improv. It is creating a character that you act out with all of your friends who have also created characters that they are acting out. It is the most famous in a genre of games that are called TTRPGs, which just means tabletop role-playing game. And you can, with playing D&D, it can vary from like you just get together for one Saturday afternoon to do like a one shot with your friends to a years long campaign with story arcs and character death and significant life change that plays out both in game and out of game. Critical Role and Dimension 20 are probably the best known TV shows in the TTRPG space, and we might reference them throughout the conversation, and we'll link those in the show notes, of course. And last but not least, I think folks listening may know also that D&D was part of the Satanic Panic in the 1980s. It had a very difficult reputation for a very long time, not just for being nerdy, but because it was the target of the religious right, which we may get into a little bit, particularly given my wife's and my backgrounds. So by way of actually getting into the conversation and me shutting the fuck up, I want to open the floor to everyone to kind of ask, like, obviously we all happen to be witches and happen to have known each other primarily through our practicing occult work, but like, was witchcraft, was the spiritual something that you expected to encounter so obviously in the realm of D&D when we were like, hey, what if we were just nerds together?
Well, this is my first D&D campaign ever. And my only other D&D experience, my only other like TTRPG experiences period were one shots with you all. So I'm very new to this, although now we're on session 19, so how new? But just to brag, we have a campaign that's been going for a while, just, you know, and it will never stop. But no, I did not expect it to be so spirited. That was not something I saw coming. I will say, like, trying to come up with my character, a lot of my creative process I do with spirits I hang out with, so like that, but I didn't think like it would keep going the way that it's gone, or as in such like an intense and visceral and profound way. That was something I did not realize would be a thing, but I'm curious about other people.
Yeah.
I've been playing a very long time, and this is the first time that I myself have encountered this level of active and oftentimes like I almost want to say like autonomous or like errant magical energy and participation and spirit participation in games. So much so that it caught me by surprise and has enabled, I think, a way of thinking for me that it's very much about who you're playing with rather than the game itself, and maybe perhaps everyone at the table's openness to intervention or intercession by spirits. I think it was like we made a joke at the beginning when we were like, wow, why is this so much more intense than we expected? And then we're like, oh, is it because it's like 4 witches sit down at a table led by a very sensitive game master and are surprised, you know, like when witchcraft happens. But you know, I think some of it is character choices as well as the people playing. And historically, I think I haven't allowed myself to play characters as informed by spirit relationships. They were more experimental, or they were self-inserts, or they were like the opposite of self-inserts. So I think there was a spectrum, but this totally caught me personally by surprise. And now it's kind of one of those like, oh, duh things in retrospect.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of it has to do with a sort of active buy-in by the entire party to kind of participate in something that transcends theater of the mind and then actively co-ops the imaginal.
Yeah. There's a way in which I think, like, because this is this is my officially like second longest running campaign. Meg and I think kind of at this point famously fell in love during our first D&D campaign. So I definitely experienced intensity I have definitely experienced profound emotional intensity in and literally fallen in love with someone in a game before. And that, so like, I think I had a category for D&D bleed, as it were, into the personal, into the, and I also, I think, had a really big category for the way that D&D can be a safer space to test things out around belief, relationships, sex, like sexuality, gender, what have you. And I think that that is also, like, on a sidebar, like what the religious right ironically is correctly afraid of. That like a D&D game like does create a kind of field. It does create a kind of like bought in imaginal space for the players to experiment with different ways of living life that might not be that which is socially prescribed. And like, I think there's a tremendous power in the way that like imagination can unlock a lot of like limits that we've placed on ourselves. But yeah, I have never experienced the kind of spirit activity in a game that, like, you know, I've had other intense experiences, but it's never been like this. This is so profoundly unique. And I think that what you say, Sasha, about like the fact that all of us do this and are bought in, you know, it kind of has got to the point, because Meg and I host here at our house. We have a table big enough to seat everybody.
I'm sitting on it right now.
Meg, but it has also kind of got to the point where like, and I generally tell our like house spirits and just our spirits generally that like if people are coming over, or if a lot of people are coming over, or if people are coming over who are bringing their own, as the two of you are, like bringing their own what entourage, as it were, like let's just like let them know, be prepared, etc. But like I have started to be much more rigorous in the spiritual hygiene before a game, before everyone gets there, like in the hours before, because I have noticed that like it actively makes a difference to like prepare the space in a way that I've never had to fucking do for any D&D game before. Any other game. Like, it's just that I think at this point it's like we're at the table, but like spirit is also at the table, and we all know that.
Yeah, I haven't been playing as long as Sasha, but I think I've been playing longer than Meg and Jeanna. And and yeah, I've definitely had some intense
You got me into this.
I did. I
only started playing D&D because I was low-key jealous that you had other friends. Like, it's just a totally normal
super
reaction.
Have all the same friends, so you did great. Yeah, but I've played in a few other campaigns, and I've never had this level of like sensation of spirit activity, or just like awareness that something bigger is happening, or that the character does kind of seem to have a mind of her own and is going to sometimes just show up and be like, "You're doing this wrong. This is actually what you're supposed to be doing, and how dare you think that this was what I wanted." I will say that I played in one game. I want to say it ran for like maybe a year before it sort of fell apart, run by my dear friend Mel. But I think there were 6 of us total, and every single person in the game over the course of that year either came out as non-binary or adjusted their sexual orientation in a gayer way. So like just that 1 year, which is just to say, like, do you know what you were saying about like making space for experimentation and exploration and expanding the field of imagination, like having a place where you can safely fuck around and see what it might feel like to inhabit a different gender expression, or play around with a different sexual identity, or just move through the world in a really different way. It does make a lot of space, and I know that was big for me in terms of like coming out as bisexual in a bigger way, like allowing me to really embrace my non-binary identity, and also to like get divorced and fall in love with my best friend. Like it was like a lot of things have happened for me through the course of being able to play in safe, supported spaces with people I trust through D&D, which is a wild sentence, but it's had a huge impact on my life. And this game has had a big impact, I think, on my definition of what it means to be a witch, and how I think about my own like spiritual and magical practices, because in general they're pretty non-rigorous. They're pretty like simple. And so I've learned a lot from all 3 of you about what it means to engage with spirit in a more intentional way, and also like ways to protect myself and take care of myself before and after games, because it's a really intense experience sometimes.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that a little bit? Kind of like what the impact is on the self, like before, after game, things that we notice. Because I think something we see with like professional D&D players, I think of, there's this one episode of Critical Role in campaign 2 where they're at the hag's hut, I should say. And each player like individually goes in and basically like offers the most powerful thing they have. And also the ways, frankly, in which Matthew Mercer and like Brennan Lee Mulligan, like the way that they represent magic, like they are tapped into something. Like I don't know what they would call it, but like they are doing stuff that I recognize, and it's not because I recognize it from D&D.
Abria too, thinking about that Court of Fane Flowers that she ran.
Yes.
Like Abria knows what's up.
Yeah, but I think there's this one particular episode, and like obviously people become impacted by their characters in so many powerful ways, but like I remember this one episode where Marisha was like visibly physically unwell after her character's interaction with the hag. So like I know, like obviously there are many situations in which like something can come up in a game that really impacts you as a person, really takes a physical toll, like brings up emotions, brings up past trauma, what have you. But when you are playing in an Oops All Witches game, like I don't know, like how have you all like noticed like that there are certain things that maybe resemble just like spiritual things, well, not everything spiritual, but like certain practices that you've had to perhaps more intentionally bring into D&D from your witchcraft that you're like, I didn't think I had to use this tool here, but this is actually, we got to contain some of this stuff and not let it just like run free everywhere.
I'll start by saying I realized pretty early on that in like our particular game, and not every game, I'll be really clear about that, and I think it wouldn't be actually like a good or sustainable activity for me as an individual to participate in if like every time I engaged in any kind of TPT or RPG setting I experienced it. But there was such a unexpected and unanticipated level of never full but light spirit possession that went on with the character. I think like as a writer of nonfiction but also of fiction, I've had experiences throughout my life where I have felt like, oh, this character feels like a spirit. There's something that is like three-dimensional. They have a story. They want to tell it. They're co-opting fiction as the vehicle through which their story is being told or communicated, or that they're going to like somehow triangulate eyes and energy for their own sort of end. And that part is like kind of a given. But I had not experienced that within the capacity of tabletop RPG. I had experienced it within the capacity of lore drop. I spent a lot of time, and by a lot of time I mean like a solid decade, on like internet online literate roleplay forums when I was younger. It's where I cut my teeth, especially when I was in like high school and into my early 20s. But I know that part was easier, and I think that was easier because for me as a by and large a cerebral person, it's easy to bypass and escape the body and then sort of like allow something to come through and co-opt the mind or the narrative. It is a very different sensation, and I think it is much more alarming and very visceral when it happens with a character at the table. And I think perhaps in previous iterations of my life where I had played games, I was so much more uncomfortable with being in my body that even if that had been a phenomena that could have occurred, I would have blocked it. I would have been too frightened by the feeling of powerlessness or lack of control over like my physical experience, or being made to be aware of sensation and experience within the body. And witchcraft is actually the thing, in the deliberate intentional engagement with witchcraft and the witched body, the monstrous body, is what allowed me to come back home to it. And subsequently I think I was like kind of rearing to get co-opted. And so I have some without disclosing too much, like awareness of possessory traditions, right? And I have learned certain skills and qualities and practices that are useful for grounding after, say, an incorporation or a visitation or anything of that nature that I have definitely at times. And like, let's be so for real. It's not like every time we're coming away and we're like shaken with the spirit.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. But when it happens, it's very apparent to us.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like
The
you
table
are
changes.
the table changes.
The voices
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And it's very clear and evident. And I think it is not just and that's the thing about being at the D&D table. It's not just a personal, you're not existing in the vacuum there. Like, what choice you make involves everyone else in it. And there have been times, I remember the time that I got really hit, right? And then Meg afterwards. Meg is in Jeanna's wife, Meg.
Yeah, I got like boomeranged into it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Looking at each other from across the floor, and we both started crying.
I know. I was like, you have to come sit by me, and I can't talk. I just have to cry for a while, and I don't know what's going on.
It wasn't because anyone was upset. It was like the energy leaving the body, right? Which was like an intense and very kind of ecstatic experience. But then, like, Meg, not Gina's wife, and I have had to like set curfews around, like, we can't, or like I've had to be as recently as last night or whenever, I think, be like, I have to stop talking about a thing now because I won't sleep. I'm dreaming about my character. I'm dreaming about the world. It's like he exists independently of me and is like, you know, mouthing off and giving opinions and commenting on activities in ways where I have to be like, okay, these are boundaries. Like, this is how I feel. This is what makes me feel not psychotic or like not at work or not any of these other things, right? Jeanna, I think you're really probably the best at that. I've like been very impressed by you just saying like, no, I'm done with this now, or like, this is the boundary I need to maintain so that this doesn't take over my life. Me, I'm a little bit like, hi, right?
I mean, yeah, it's weird because and I think this is actually something that's relevant to the way that this game is so different for us, is that in previous campaigns, like, I have played characters who, like, I wrote about Delilah in Heretic. I wrote about our first campaign that we fell in love in Heretic, and who, like, those characters are so important to me and I feel so close, but they do not take over my life. And I could think about them outside of game, and like not in the way that Sasha's talking about, where it's like you're like a spirit is just talking to you and it's like, shut, I need to sleep. Like, I could engage very intentionally with Delilah anytime and she didn't like bleed into my life. Whereas with the character I'm playing in this game, and also just to say, I'm playing, I think, the only fully human character in our party. And her name is Lucy Sunshine, and she is a light cleric. Lucy arrives in full force when I sit down at the table, and otherwise I cannot talk about her. I cannot, like, or else she'll just take over. And not so much in the way that Sasha's talking about, but more in like or maybe it is also the way you're talking about, because like, I'm like, I have we're all creative people. We all are writing books in some capacity. And I'm like, I have 2 books that I'm writing right now. And one of them is a novel with a very big fantasy world. And like, I don't have the space, and that has its own spirits attached to it. I'm like, I do not have the space or time to let Lucy take up my life. So I am very much I sit down at the table, she's there. I leave the table, she's out. And I think in a similar way it's similar and different, right? Because it's like you're referencing, Sasha, like familiarity with certain possessory traditions. And I come out of an evangelical church that is like, whereas my beloved wife was like wooden pews Baptist, we are so strict, no nothing. I went to a lot of churches where folks were getting slain in the spirit, where it was like multi-hours of like trance worship. And so I have like speaking in tongues, you know, being very much possessed by some, like, so, and I don't talk about this publicly a lot, but like I grew up in a lot of, because some churches we went to, because we moved around a lot, and my mother is like a religious zealot who likes to experience new things. So like we would go to different churches for these things. But I, as a teenager, was very involved in a lot of that. In college, I specifically sought out like a very charismatic church that had those kinds of ecstatic worship experiences. And so I think that even though I would never have called it spiritual hygiene at the time, it was just I show up to church and this happens. And then I leave church and it's done. And so I think and I don't know what that is, but it feels like a muscle memory more than anything. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So again, I think that honestly, like, I think it comes from church. And I think it comes because I had to learn very early how to not take that home with me. And my mom, like, to a certain extent, also helped with it because my mother is definitely would never call herself a witch, but there was definitely a lot of like extra Christian spiritual stuff happening in our house and like an awareness of spirits that I grew up with that in hindsight was not just like normal Christian. So I think all of that goes into it. In that way that we bring our full selves to the D&D table and are maybe calling on skills that we haven't thought about in a while to manage certain experiences we're having.
I think I really admire the like I sit and the character is present and then I get up and it's not. I don't know if I can do that, but I also haven't tried because I'm addicted to the feeling. Like I basically wait until I'm like, oh, here are some of the red flags for me that like this needs to be pulled back a little bit. Like I wait for it to kind of go a little wrong and then I pull back. And I was joking with Sasha this morning. I'm like, is this the only way I'm like an edgelord? Like, is this the only thing that I have? Because it's like I really crave that moment at the table when I feel like my character, whose name is Rivenpire, takes over. And but also it's really vulnerable because sometimes it's not like full dissociation where I leave the table, like I still feel like I'm there, but I need you all to tell me what happened and I need to hear it again usually. And I find that very grounding to hear post game, whether it's through the recording or it's actually better when you all tell me, because I think that's something like communal and reassuring, having it reflected back to you. But yeah, I mean, but I invite and like having her around outside of game until I'm like, okay, actually I have some shit I have to do. And like this is starting to impact other things that I don't want it to impact, but I do crave it. And so I admire the boundary and also am just like, you just can seep right on in, girl. It's fine. Like I like hanging out. Let's see what happens. And I also really think one of the things that makes her not feel like like the character I played for my one shot or the character that I'm playing and Meg and I are also in another campaign right now. And I think also something that I feel that is different about this character, and I don't have a lot to compare it to, but and why I've asked all of you multiple times, like, is this normal? Like, does this normally happen? Even like, no, not really.
Not really.
But I think I feel a distinct in-game Riven who only knows what she knows, who has only experienced what she's experienced. And then I have like another Riven who has heard every above table conversation, who has been part of any like Discord outside of game converse. Like she's aware of all the stuff I know and everything she knows about herself that I don't know. And so like those are like two kind of versions that don't overlap. Like the in-game Riven is very crisp and really only lives at the table and only is only in the scenes she's in. But the one who's like around outside of game has a lot more, is able to kind of like point things out to me or be like, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I want, and has a lot of opinions. So
I mean, I think there's something you said though, Meg, around like how you chase that feeling and you like the feeling, in that like D&D is just fundamentally a collaborative, like creative endeavor. Like there's something so creatively exciting and energizing about it. And I think humans are naturally creative things and we want to be engaged in that. And I think that sometimes where my own reticence is simply because where I'm most chasing that feeling is with my novel right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to be losing the I. I don't know. I think about like sometimes with D&D and like with Lucy and the table, like it's like I lose my eye, and that is the most like precious thing that can happen when writing. That does not always happen when writing, certainly. But like that is absolute, like that was what I was chasing in church when I was young, was where I was like gone. And it was just oneness, like spirit, what have you. And I think that there's a way that that happens at the table that like is addictive, because it is like being in creative, the way I would represent it, and that might not be the language other people would use. Like it's like being in creative flow. It's like being connected to story, like capital S story, like story before you, story with you, story after you, in a way that like takes you out of human time. And that is really, I don't know, it just feels so pure. And so, at least just saying how it feels for me, but like it feels very pure, but also very like grounded and very like, this is all there is, this is all there ever will be. And then it stops and reality hits, and that's a hard come down.
Yeah, I think my experience is pretty similar, much more similar to Meg's than to Jeanna, as I am very like, I want to play all the time. I want to talk about the characters all the time. I want to talk to my character all the time. I play a character named Gurzabi. I also experienced that kind of dual, like when I'm at the table, Greer knows what she knows and that's it. But there is another Greer that I can talk to when we're not at the table, that has seen everything and that knows things that I've talked to her about, and she has feelings on those things and thoughts on those things. So Jeanna and I don't talk about the game basically at all, unless we're with y'all. So I talk to you two about the game because that's what I have. Yeah. Or I just talk to Greer about the game. But yeah, I think in part because I do write, but I'm not a fiction writer. And this is I have creative projects and lots of creative things that I do, but this is my main outlet for story in a particular way, that's like a story that I'm part of telling, and a collaborative imagination experience that I get to participate in. That's like, this is like the main one for me in my life right now. And so I think that getting to lose the I, it doesn't happen as much for me, at least in the way that I write nonfiction, because of the things I write about. Although I'm writing this devil book right now and it's proving to be a huge challenge. So it might be that like there are things from this game experience that will teach me about how to work on that book a little bit more. But yeah, this is my main like fun play creative outlet, and it's so precious to me because of that, because it is like my chance to lose the I, my chance to just be a different person with a different set of problems and a different set of priorities, and no internet. What a blessing that is. Like we're playing in like the 80s and there's no internet. God, it's so nice.
There are cars though. There are cars.
Oh yeah, when we say we're playing in the 80s, we mean like we're in a homebrewed fantasy urban world, although now we're in the forest.
Yeah,
that takes place roughly in an 80s world.
In a specifically Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Blade Runner.
Yeah. It's more vibey. But I also think like what I thought you meant at first, Meg, was like we're all in person when we play, and we're just sitting around a table being people together, and there's very little technology at the table other than like
no, we have.
But you meant like in game. You meant in game. It's just
Can you
like,
imagine if every time y'all came over, I was like, I've cut the Wi-Fi. We only live here. You're not allowed to use D&D Beyond or any internet tools. We only live here. There is only now.
I mean,
I don't hate that, honestly. The more I was talking, the more I was like, listen, hate it.
Yeah, I think I am on the same triangle with the Megs. I think also it's really, you bring up this interesting point, right? Like I am also a big lose the eye kind of person, and I have pursued that everywhere across the spectrum of my life, especially like younger. I didn't care if it was going to be like online role play, or if it was going to be like drugs, or if it was going to be like promiscuity and like living in extreme ways. It was always about that sort of, how do I get outside? How do I escape the self to be immersed or disappeared or like enfleshed in something else that feels bigger or more, or that somehow transcends like the container of like our consensual or reality, right? And so I think there's something to it, but I also noticed that, you know, like I wrote a novel over the summer, and I didn't find that it detracted from my obsession. I mean, I think that, and there's like a million ways we could look at this. I'm sure there's like astrological things that like contribute to it, but there are also ways, like I know for me, where other creative highs and ways of experiencing and expressing myself feed the other ones. So I will often have like 15 different like threads that I'm chasing through different activities or experiences, and sometimes they're interrelated and sometimes they're totally separate. Like my novel I wrote could not be more different, probably, aside from the fact that it involves some connection to space horror in some way, right? Like that's a little bit of a through line for me. And characters that are dealing with like substance use in some way. But I think that that kind of through line, like that made me more energized about another project, which makes me more energized about, I like a monkey bar from one sort of sense of creative exhilaration or high or immersion to another, and I feel like they feed into each other. I will say that is not the case for usually like a day or two after the game. So okay, I'm being really like, I'm playing it down. It's like 5 days after we play, especially if it's like a really like especially intense and spirited kind of session. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm forcing myself to do other things, and I will do other things. And usually complaining to Meg about it the whole time about having to do those other things.
You can complain about me too, because I'm like, please complain to me, because I'm usually like, around. What am I the only one that feels nuts right now?
No, we feel nuts.
Yeah,
nuts. I feel nuts, and I want to feel nuts, and I want to be told it's normal that I feel nuts. And also, Meg, please answer an email. Like, I need all of those things all at once, you know?
And I find, and this goes back to the thing about the witch, right? Is the heightened energy in the spirit body can be directed magically, and I think it insists upon being directed, or it becomes very destructive if you are having the excess, that kind of Ace of Cups scene of the energy that builds up, and if you are not giving it a place to overflow, you're going to drown yourself, right? And usually it takes a few days after a session of me like screaming in the cup, like not being able flow can be like directed. I mean, it's not like a screaming in the cup. It's like it's like an ecstatic, like a delicious screaming, not like a, oh no, I'm drowning. It's like, oh fuck, I'm drowning. Right? And then that spills over and sort of fecundates other projects, and all of a sudden I have more ideas, right? And I have more momentum, and like roads that were blocked are open. And I think some of that has to, okay, sorry, this is like a little bit of a detraction. I've been thinking a lot about like the different types of D&D classes in accordance to like what witchcraft is, right? And there's two main classes. You can be a witch, capital W, and be any of the classes, right? Like the perfect intersection of nerdiness is about to occur.
Well, so excited. I'm ready.
Right? But to my understanding and my personal definition that I use for witchcraft, right? There's two classes. It's sorcerer and warlock are the two most common ones. The one that is born with like otherness and spirit already inherently in them, and that's what's directing the magic, or the one that makes some kind of pact that permanently changes them, recalibrates the witch body, right? And then subsequently is impacted, but it usually that's not an inborn thing. This is like that obnoxious every 6 months there's the witch blood conversation that goes on. God. Like, are you born with it or do you become it? And it's like it's in either, you both are options. And those are the sort of warlock sorcerer dichotomies.
I think that's a good delineation for that. Yeah.
Sometimes you're born with it, and sometimes it's Maybelline, right? And by Maybelline,
I was just on the edge of making that joke, and I'm so glad you did it. Like, it's right there.
Unserious.
Identity is like we can't just let it be.
The jingle is right there. It's right there.
Begging to be used.
Yeah.
And so I think in a way, depending on what you choose to play or how you encounter it in the game, there's a lot of opportunity for discovery about your own otherness.
Yeah.
Even if your character, I mean, I think we kind of like none of our characters are us, obviously, but I think all of our characters perhaps convey some sort of fundamental mysteries or qualities or like unheimliche sort of like homelessness about the self that we encounter, which like jokes on us and sorry to our DM for dropping all of that in there to deal with. But all of them I think often have given us opportunities where we were like, oh, the call is coming from inside the house, right? Like this is speaking to something that is fundamental about my own otherness or experience of and to magic, and how often that can feel like a consensual, like there's a lack of consent in how these kind of magical experiences arise, or like the way that initiations provide themselves to us. Provide themselves seems like kinder than what that really is. running from drow banshees through the woods, you know, like what feelings about this? Let's pause for a second and reflect. And I think that's incredibly valuable because it lets you get enough outside of yourself to actually look at yourself. And I think it also, if you're not playing with people you really love and trust, could be super dysregulating and scary as well.
Yeah. I think whether it's that kind of like light possessory thing or just that kind of like unbidden thought that comes into your head, that feeling of like, I did not think that thought is strong and I know who it sounds like that, those moments I find so craveable, and they're so vulnerable. Like D&D is vulnerable, period. It just is. I think there's something about experiencing this kind of clear spirit visitation in front of people and then playing it out with them. They're watching it happen. Their character might also be feeling that, and you're doing it all, and you care about each other. Good news, you all care about each other and trust each other. Bad news, the stakes are really high for potentially like hurting each other's feelings, derailing a game we really care about, like just and you're like, I don't know what I'm about to say, I don't know what I'm about to do, I have no idea. That's kind of like the risk and the gamble and the thrill of it, but it's also like, thank God we all trust each other so much.
But that trust isn't accidental too, right? Like it's not like trust does not arrive like a spirit unbidden. Trust is intentionally built. It's like we and our DM have had so many conversations, like
so many
about.
It's also oops all sapphic is the other thing you should probably mention.
All sapphic, that's true. But it's all we've just had so many conversations, like laying down not so much like the rules and the hard lines, but just like creating space for aftercare and creating space that like everyone is getting the kind of emotional support that they need, the amount of digesting that they crave, that we have space out of like, I remember, you know, early in our campaign, like Sasha's and my characters, it turns out, and that I often think of that as like a spirit thing, because I'm like, I don't know how you think about it, because I'm like, we did not plan to know each other or have any proximity as our characters, like at all, but like it just kind of came like out of nowhere to me, which like spirit, hello, that like, oh, they have this like kind of long standing being in and out of each other's lives. And like there's such a perverse at this point kind of like comfort and familiar and like family like familiarity. But like early in the campaign, like I was screaming at you, and like I would try to like have and be like, Sasha, it's not me. Like, are you okay? Is this okay? Because I was like just Lucy was like so angry at and triggered by Blackjack in such big ways. And I was like, this, and that is not the kind of thing that I would feel comfortable ceding ground to her in if I did not trust that we could talk. And which I think is also where we're like, not all games are like this. None of us have really played it. And Meg and I, to be fair, have like played in games where we had significant trust and intimacy and emotional.
Absolutely.
Like we've absolutely had that with our other main campaign group. But which also I'm just like, how do you play D&D for an extended period of time without that? Like,
I wouldn't want to.
I wouldn't want to. It's not fun. Like if you're having to censor yourself because there's someone at the table who you can't really be, like, man, you got to be playing with good people. I forgot where I was going with that. Mercury and Sag, Mercury retrograde. If someone wants to pick that up.
Yelling at me.
Yelling, yeah.
Oh,
No, but
yeah,
that early spirit interaction,
yeah, just like that we were like having such a like butting heads. And also even now, like there are ways that like Blackjack is a total asshole to Lucy in ways that like personally I would be so hurt by, but that's also how I know it's not me, because she just like,
that's how I know it's not you. I'm always like, it's fine. What's happening? Okay? Like,
it's just like that's just the dynamic. Like it's all good.
It felt like purely serendipity, the way it immediately fell together, and the immediacy with which we were both like, yes, they do know each other. This is how. And the dynamic itself could not have been like manufactured. That level of immediate, like brother sister style picking and banter. I don't understand why Lucy has ever felt a desire to be upset at all with Blackjack, because he is perfect in every single way. Has never done anything wrong in his life. And I think, our characters sort of split like face duties. I think depending on whether or not Blackjack is going to be like brooding or sulking or that day versus like on his bard luck game, etc. But it also made me think that interaction, especially what was it outside of the temple, etc. Right?
Yeah.
It made me think about.
I was like sobbing and screaming. It was that was a moment. Like that was.
We were all in that game so hard. Like,
that was an insane. That was one of those episodes where it was like, what's happening? What's going on? We need to have a conversation about what's happening. Because the way he responded was so natural. It's not the way I would have. A fucking little Cancer Moon would have reacted. If I saw you upset, I would have been like, like, how do I make my friend feel better or whatever? But it made me think about how much D&D can also teach us how to have conflict that makes you closer as a community or a group or a party, as opposed to gives you an excuse to disappear or ghost. Like, one of the things is that we are all playing characters with trust issues, I think is a light way, is a generous way of putting that. And all of them continue to choose to trust people they've known for like 2.5 weeks. And at first, this is a conversation I had a lot with our game master, where I was like, how do I justify my character like staying with these people? He's got a whole world, right, that he is a very like secure in. How do I convince him that these people are people that he's supposed to trust or do all these things with? And some of that got played out like in scene, and some of that was like stuff that I had to figure out behind the scenes that I had to talk to him about, etc. But it was a lot harder, or like it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And I think it was because everyone, was making that choice. All the characters, despite all odds and despite probably what's good for them, quite frankly, chose to keep putting themselves in these situations. And I think it was the willingness for Lucy to get messy and the capacity for Blackjack, and then subsequently in that moment, you know, Greer and Riven, to like rise into the moment of mess.
Yeah.
And that like allowed for them to be closer after. And that's something we just don't see as much in interpersonal communities and spaces anymore. I think and that's a thing that D&D can teach you, because you're kind of playing out human scenarios with people that you love and trust, that gives you maybe the confidence that should that arise away from the table too, that you can yourself make it through that. And here's like a practice, including playing a character that maybe is better at things than you are in certain ways. Like mine's way better at being like kind of direct and confrontational when he's upset about something, right? Than I am myself, who usually I'm like, it's your problem and you're the bad guy and you must keep it inside and suffer or whatever. And yeah, so I think it's like almost workshopping social skills too, in a certain way, that create greater intimacy over time, which is not maybe a tool of witchcraft, but certainly a thing that witches need to learn how to do. So
it's certainly a tool of being in community, which is something that we have talked about a lot on the pod, and the ways, and also like spiritual community and the ways in which, and again, I'm just, man, this comes from church for me. You don't have to like people you're in community with. Like you do not have to be best friends with those. And like, I don't know. I just want to agree with everything you said, Sasha, that like, I think there's so much that we get to practice and in this like agreed upon imaginal field. But there are ways in which the energy that is created in that imaginal field still has an impact on our literal physical present selves.
Yeah, I think I in making Riven, I set out to take away all the things that make me comfortable being around people. Like I find comfort and feel like I am being of use if I can use language. We talked about my Mercury placement at the top of this episode. And I was like, what if I have a character who doesn't talk that much? Oh shit, this feels awful. Or like, what if I have a character who doesn't people please? Oh shit, this feels awful. And having to like work through that, but like with characters my friends made, and we get to take care of each other as a party and as people. And I also think part of this is like, I think this is like a witchcraft piece as well, is but it doesn't have to be, is like questioning like, okay, how much make-believe do you do until it's real? And it's really important in D&D to acknowledge like, no, we are actually friends outside this game who are separate people from our characters, and we have to hang out as just us and not as our characters. We have to have strong boundaries between who we're playing and who we are, so that Jeanna can say, Sasha, are you okay? I'm not actually yelling at you. Or, you know, like if there's like a spiky moment, I mean, Lord knows Jeanna and my character have had our own oil and water moments. Like, and I,
explosive more.
But I feel like, so like that separation is so important, but at the same time, there is a reality to our imagination together where like playing it out is real. And I know like people have talked about this, about D&D and about all kinds of like the power of imagination stuff, like where your brain experiences it like you're having a memory, like you're logging this as memories that are not different than your real memories. And so like I think you do get to kind of like be a different person, even though you're still you, and you still have to be accountable for who you are and who that character is. And learning to navigate different kinds of realities together without losing your footing or your sanity is, I think, also a skill that is necessary when you do magic.
I do also think that note about being insistent, and that is relevant to this game in a way that it has not been relevant in previous games for me. That like we have to be friends outside, you know, like we have to like be specifically intentionally having before and after time, and like be people together outside of game in a way that with other groups of friends and people like that has not been as much the case. And I think that also speaks to the amount of spirit activity in the game, kind of also in the way that it's like we have relationships outside of like doing, yeah, I don't know. It's not all the spiritual high. It's like you just got to also fucking live your life and like be a person in relationship with other people outside of that. Such a profound statement. That's like what Lucy was saying. She's starting to come out here. That's the problem.
It's never a problem when Lucy is here. I love her so
No,
much.
we love Lucy.
Again,
She tried to say a few things to Greer last time, and I was like, both Meg and Greer were like, what are you trying to say here? This makes zero sense.
No, I also think, I don't know, to a much earlier point Sasha made around like the energizing and how you manage essentially like the energy body, the witch body on the come down. I think that Sasha's and my differing strategies are just like pure Jupiter Saturn, like would be my interpretation of that. It's just like pure how a Jupiter person does this, how a Saturn person does this. Like it's, I don't know, it's also, yeah, because like I think what you're saying, Meg, is so rich and relevant that like what we are creating together is also it is in the imaginal, but it is real. And it is very much felt. And it's like, on the one hand, like we have our memories that we have like just as people, as friends, what have you. But I'm like, but I've also gone into the woods and killed things with all of you.
Yeah.
And there's a way in which that is for the FBI agent on my computer. That's not really.
We do realize we
It's the
haven't done
game.
it. It's just that
We do know.
Memory of all of you saving my life at some point. Like that's also
Exactly.
like
yeah. We all actually climbed into a shower with our clothes on and held Lucy. Like
Yeah,
that
we did.
all actually happened. And we all went to a punk show together and it was great.
And it was great. Like,
It was so good.
Great point. Is that our game master has been really smart, having picked up on the level of intensity and the level of like even the non-casters in our party are casters. Like even the non-casters can do magic, and we're doing intense things, and magic is like part of the story to begin with in its own way. Probably not, I wouldn't say it was explicitly, but more like on an esoteric level. That's a part of what's happening. But giving us opportunities, whether it's like the punk show, whether it is the owl bear cubs,
About today.
places that are less about the touch grass sessions, right?
Yeah.
The like here, why don't you just like go ice skating or something? And I think that having those moments, like moments that we all are like, we laugh a lot, even when things are really intense and hard, we're still laughing a lot, which I think is like a thing that makes me feel really secure in us as a group, is that even in the like the Red Hot funeral buildup or whatever, we're still making like little jokes or comments or something that are like releasing the tension at the table. And I think two things that are have been helping, and I think are like really good for people doing a lot of witchcraft, spirit work, etc., is again finding moments to like laugh and break tension and not take yourself and everything you're doing so fucking seriously all the time. Especially like, I think a lot of occultists can go into edgelord territory, and I think all of our characters have edgelord moments, right?
Yeah.
Where no one has ever known the darkness and loneliness they know, right? And then I think the other thing that we've gotten better at doing is like knowing when to take breaks when things are getting to kind of a fever pitch. Get up from the table, break the chain of energy. Like you are working in this kind of almost seance like
It's a magic circle.
It is.
of contained energy there. And I noticed that for sure intensify when I moved to the other head of the table, so that you're literally like not an empty direction as well, and everyone was able to make eye contact with like someone pretty easily. Getting up and just going out, we'll go and stand outside, it's been cold or whatever, right? It makes a big difference, and that's really important. Like, have you gotten up from where you're sitting? Like, have you gotten some water to drink? You know, have you remembered that there's a world that exists and a life that exists outside of the game, the magical practice, the spirit you're interacting with? Like, all of those things are so necessary to a well-balanced, like life. You know, and I think surviving anything, whether it's like a game that is very able to instill obsessive qualities, or whether it's a magical practice or a spirit relationship that can also instill those kind of same obsessive properties.
Yeah.
I also am watching all of our characters learn how to take care of each other. And even though we do not have the same care needs as our characters, we are also learning how to take care of each other because we haven't necessarily been through this kind of intensity together before, even though we are all friends. And we, even if we've been through versions of it, not in this way. Like, I know for me, I'm not that good. If I'm having a big spirit moment, or even if it's just character bleed, like it's not like, oh, ribbon's so at the table. I'm just realizing that, like, wait, I'm feeling agitated, but I don't, even though I know that wasn't at me, and I, you know, whatever that thing is, I'm kind of a slower processor, so emotionally, and so I will just sit, and I know that, like, some of you have, I think all of you probably know, like, what I look like when I've left, you know, and I've watched each of you be like, should we take a little break? Should we just go, Meg, do you want to go stand outside for a bit? And it's like so loving because I can't always do that for myself because I'm busy in the, like, everything feels in slow-mo kind of, like, I don't, you know, and so I think we're noticing ways that we each need to care for each other when we're experiencing that kind of intensity, and it's going to be a little different for everybody, but I think we've been doing a really beautiful job. I feel very cared for. So
yeah, I agree. I think there's something, it's so interesting to think about because I feel like I sit across from Meg, and I feel like I know the difference between when Greer and Riven are making eye contact versus when I'm making contact.
Oh my God,
with Meg.
yes, 100%.
And it's so weird, but it's useful because I feel like I can check on you with a look, and also our characters can check on each other with it's very weird. But it has become such an intimate and important part of the game, the ways that we all have found to check in with each other above table and in character, and the ways that that ripples out into our friendships. Because, like, anyone who's played D&D knows that you start playing a game with your friends, and then the intimacy that your characters build, like, it solidifies the friendships in a way that I don't even have language for. Like, it just makes... It just builds so much vulnerability and trust and care when you're with a good group of people that you really trust. I loved y'all so much before we even started this game, but now I'm like, no, they're family. I would actually go to war for them. like I would do, you know what I mean? It just ramps up the intimacy and the care and the family. Like, no, we fight these things together in the world and out of the world. And it's just a really beautiful, cool thing.
It went from, like, oh yeah, Meg and Jeanna, I love all of them, they're great, to, like, at my wedding reception being like, I need a photo of the campaign of the party together, and it's gonna come before some of my other, like, blood family photos, you know, like, it's true. It creates that sense of loyalty. I think it also really, you know, I mentor a lot of folks both in creative projects but also in, like, their witchcraft related practices, their magical practices, and one of the biggest things they ask are, how do I start to get better at spirit sight and scrying? How do I, like, allow myself the freedom to kind of enter the imaginal more easily without, like, expectation or feeling like I'm, like, overwriting what might actually be there? And I always am like, you have to start playing games that require theater of the mind.
Yes.
So many people that auto faces or something where you can't see in your head, and this is still a trick that's really, really useful because it requires you. It doesn't mean that you have to, like, see a 3-dimensional fucking image, but it will allow you to start creating the faculties of sight that do not exist in the material or corporeal world, right? Some people may be able to do this just because, you know, when they're, like, writing something out, but I find that especially on the face of spirit sight, that when you're at the table and you are starting to superimpose the fact that, like, you know, I know that I'm in Meg and Jeanna's living room, like, I'm at their dining table, but I am, like, very also aware physically and visually that I am sitting around a fire in the middle of woods, or
Yep.
like I am in like a dive bar on the outskirts of a town. It's almost like a practice for the spirit seeing faculties without you having the pressure and the anxiety about whether or not you're seeing something true or right or real, which makes it consistently easier every time that you then do take it back. And it is where there are higher stakes on being able to visualize or sense or detect something accurately. So it's incredible practice for that, which is the most practical and actionable usually of witchcraft.
Yeah. I've always had very, very visual, very active imagination, like that kind of, I don't know. I don't, even in my own life, I do not call it spirit sight, but like that ability is just something that I've had very strongly since childhood. But D&D has absolutely intensified it. So I also just like want to say, like, it is almost just like second nature to slip into it now at this point, after like 6 years of playing very regularly.
Whether you're like a person who visualizes easily or not, because I do some visualization stuff with my clients, especially in my 5th and 11th house readings, and including for people who are like, I don't normally do this. It's always optional, but like people who say like they have a hard time with it, initially, I think, hey, there is a way.
I'll talk after.
There are ways that you can do this without having to be a person who visualizes. And I think when you play D&D, like Sasha was saying, you learn your own tells. You learn like, oh, it's a physical feeling. I feel tugged in a direction subtly, or I'm getting a thought that doesn't have visual cues to it, but I just have this sensation. And that is just as legitimate as getting like a visual that in your mind's eye, or like I just feel uncomfortable doing that thing. I need to do a different thing. And when you're playing D&D, I feel like what I was really nervous because of my chart and the fact that I can be a little uptight. I was like, how am I going to let go enough to role play? Even for our first one shot, I was like, I'm going to suck at this. This is going to be, I'm not going to be able to like be a character. It came way easier to me than I was expecting. Part of it is like a letting go and just like having a good time, which is like my nightmare phrase. I'm like, don't tell me to do that. But I
go rising in the house.
Chill out and enjoy yourself.
Just relax, man.
Try not to control something.
Yeah, it's so just let it go. But I think part of what happens is you start to feel the way that you're not just trying to be like an actor. You're not like, how can I act out the role of this character whose backstory I've written? It's like maybe it starts off that way, but pretty soon into any given session, the character takes over, and it doesn't have to be like, whoa, I'm getting like a possessory moment. It's just like the character starts making decisions, and those are their decisions. And the moments that I crave, that I get excited about, are when I can really feel the difference between me and my character, because I go to do something and they're like, oh no, we're not doing that. And the oh no, we're not doing that can come in all the different sensory options that I think spirit sight come into. And I think another thing that I really love about this game is, like, you know, Jeanna, you've mentioned church a few times, and like I think that I get the like losing the eye thing in my own private spirit work, but I don't do it with other people. And not only do I crave losing the eye, I crave like those moments where you have this kind of like non-negotiable, oh, a spooky thing just happened.
Yeah.
And when you have witnesses, that's really exciting to have this it's the belief stuff. It's like you really get like over and over again that moment of like, wait, what is happening right here? Like, you saw that happen, you watched that too. Like, I go back over and over again, speaking of that bar at the edge of town, to like that session we had where our DM Ryan played an NPC tarot reader, and we all got readings, and I swear to God, it was, I mean, Sasha, I think you fell out of your chair.
Yeah, I think
You did.
I like involuntarily, like I was like, what the? Yeah, I jumped out of my chair, which I've never had that happen in a real life reading, no matter how good it is.
Yeah. But the fact that like it's one thing to like give yourself a tarot reading that's like really spooky and cool. Love it, want it every day. But to do it like with your friends playing in this like imaginative space, we're making like our own little imagination church moment, where it's actually like a communal spirit moment that you get to have, and that's not that common for witches unless you're part of a tradition that like actually meets in person.
There is a sense of like a losing of the self and coming back together, knowing that you are not going to be lost, even in the sort of moment of losing, because there are people there that are going to catch you, that you can both on the micro and the macro, right? Both in scene as a character and like above table as a group of friends. And I think that it, like, even playing this game in particular has taught me a lot about being able to trust people again, after like experiencing really wild kind of betrayals and confusions from people. And it was like, oh, this is like a place in which we rebuild like the fundamental tools, not just of being able to trust in people, but being able to trust in like the experiences of spirit in relationship with other people. And seeing that, I think is really therapeutic and medicinal. I mean, witches are historically not great at being in community. That's part of the outskirts of town sort of situation, right? Like otherness, there is the process of othering, and there are ways in which otherness often leads to a sort of snake eating its own tail of self-othering and alienation and ostracization. And I think all four of our characters have at different points tried to pull the like, I can't be a part of I'm too and my past is too dark and blah blah blah.
We've all tried to pull the ripcord and like eject out. And
everyone's always been like, "You done? You over this? Like, did that feel good? Did you get it out of your system?" Great. Okay, now we've got shit to do. Like, we need each other, and I think it's that coming back together and the we need each other that has been like really beautiful for us as a friend group, in addition to, the way that plays out. And there's just, Jeanna and I, we're both writing fiction, right, and stories and novels, grand arcs where we're like not in control of our characters, obviously, but we're also like still in control. We can go and delete a thing and rewrite it if we need to. It's very different, and it's very vulnerable when you are not in control of the story, and not just in like, oh, we're never in control of the story, but like you're constantly reminded all the time, even in something as like minute as because someone in combat before you does a thing that like hijacks what you maybe would have done, and you're like, oh shit, like this is collaborative storytelling, like my cool narrative arc has just been, like taken into a different direction because of something that someone else has done. I think all of us have had characters, even our last session, where Greer, what did Greer run? What did Greer? She was going to punch upon the Banshee, like nothing was going to stop her. And she had this whole other, was like, oh my God, we're all going to, and then she had this totally surprise move where she did it. And I was like, oh, you just can't, you have to just surrender to that. And I think which is something that is really important, is like, you should not be using your magic to try and control what other people do. Like that magic should be funneled back always toward what you can do.
Yes.
What can you do when the sand beneath you is shifting? What can you do when the terrain around you is changing? When the boss, the villain, the whatever reveals itself? Like, you can't control, and you shouldn't control what the people around you are doing. That's like a really bad way to be in any kind of relationship. That is with your spirits or with, peers and friends, etc. You can only control what you are going to do, and you need to be prepared for that to change. So you can't get too comfortable or too locked in to like one idea of what that's going to look like. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be flexible, and you need to have, you need to think about how to support the group, but you need to be conscious that the only thing you can ultimately do is going to be within the domain itself.
Okay, I gotta talk about Greer for a second, because like my character is playing My character is a non-magical person. I'm the only like very much non-caster in the game. I mean, she's an Asamar. She's got some light shit.
She's got angel blood. Like
She's got wings and fucking.
Yeah, I
she's
know
not
she
magical
rules.
things.
She's not a caster, like, and so, but this character has like basically been traumatized by magic backstory, and so I think one of the other cool things about our game, and that can be explored in D&D in general, is like, what is the role of magic in a life? How does our magic impact other people? How do we navigate different people using different kinds of magics around us? How do those magics intersect? And how do we think about like the falling action or the impact or what happens to the collateral damage that can happen for magic around us? And when I wrote that backstory, I was just thinking about like, I just want to have a hot vampire ex, it's fine. But then what's happened is that it's actually rippled out into the story and into all of her character relationships and into every choice she makes in a way that has consistently surprised me, and has created some really interesting texture in all of her relationships, and also just in the game itself, in a way that I'm really grateful we get to explore, but I think also is relevant to this conversation, because like the magic that we do does impact other people, whether we're directly trying to influence or control someone else, or we're just trying to take care of ourselves or protect ourselves or whatever. Like what Jeanna was saying at the beginning around the wards and things that we do to our house before y'all come to play, like it all intersects and impacts each other. And I think that's been a really interesting thing to get to explore that I was not expecting to explore in this game.
Yeah. I mean, really, this is we live in a society. And I think that D&D like does so much. It's a place to practice, and it also just brings so much consciousness to the fact that it's not all on you is the other like piece of that. Like it's not one person is very rarely going to turn the tides of an entire thing. It's collective action. It's supporting each other. It's being aware of your fucking environment and like not trying to force like something that it's just not going to work in. Yeah, there's very much a way that it also I think is just such a good call in and reminder that like we are, even if we, and you like the listener may be a solo practitioner, I think ways in which it can feel like in that otherness that you were talking about, Sasha, like of being the self-othering also of like, I'm the witch on the edge of the woods and no one understands and no one It's like, no, we aren't alone though. We actually are not alone. And there are other people, even if we don't know them, who are doing the kind of community oriented work that we are seeking to do. Not to be getting like too meta, but yeah, I think it's such a powerful like microcosm example of how things can work in the macro.
Yeah, it's like a reminder too, right? That, everyone is special, but like no one's suffering is special.
Who
otherness is like exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we are telling ourselves that we are alone, capable of community, or people can't accept or sit with us, etc. Right? Like that's one of the biggest kind of witch narratives that you will hear from a desire to be special or different, or justify one's otherness as like a badge of uniqueness. And I think it's very rarely true to what someone's authentic longing is to not usually be totally alone or isolated. And I think all of us have had moments where we've had to sort of be like, no, your suffering, it does not like actually make you different than us. Like we have all experienced this feeling in like a different way, maybe in different circumstances or different hands, but that you're actively making a choice to be alone or other in this moment, because there are people here who can meet you in that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like all of our characters, we said, like have trust issues, and I think that's true. But I think listening to both of you talk about this, it's making me think about maybe a more specific word that I for each of our characters in different ways is they all self-reject.
Yeah.
They all are like, instead of actually looking at how much care and trust has been built in this group, they're like, no, I will pre-reject myself from a variety of situations. And it's sure, it's like a form of self-protection, but it fails. You know, like it fully fails. And I think self-rejection is extremely common. I know I do it. So I think watching characters do that, it's also one way to sort of like check yourself. If you find yourself like judging your character, getting frustrated with your character, it's an immediate mirror too, even though we are not our characters. There's a Venn diagram. And it's like reading any fiction too. Like even if you don't identify with the character, like you still can see things about your own personhood in them. And I feel really grateful too that the world we get to play in is so rich and that we keep bumping into like so many different NPCs who also push us apart and together. Because I think like if someone was listening to this and thinking about like D&D and witchcraft, I feel like a lot of it is like the party at the table, but it's also like the space that your DM makes too. Because that like can make or break that shit pretty easily.
It will make or break. And we are very lucky to have such a creative, sensitive, spiritually sensitive DM who maybe is not always consciously spiritually sensitive, but who certainly is, and who is very empathetic and people smart and not trying to like inflict their game on us.
Yeah, they're always like in it with us. It never feels like the DM is like, okay, I'm just gonna do this like weird thing and like good luck. It's like all of us at the table are telling something together. It's not like the DM is puppet stringing or railroading or judging us. It's not like we're the only ones that are bringing vulnerability and intimacy and like taking big swings to the table. It's like it's the five of us doing this thing together. But it has been really joyful to have a DM that is so willing to go there with us and to fully inhabit every NPC, to live within the flow of the world, to create like stories and conflicts and things for us to chase after and butt up against that really push our characters in different ways and give us the space to all react differently to the same thing, which has been a really fun part of this. Is, you know, we'll have something happen and all of us have very different reactions to it, very different things that we want to do around it. And it allows us to come together or push each other away in the ways that our characters really need in that moment.
Yeah, our DM is absolutely a part of the party.
I could keep talking to y'all about this for, well, the whole fucking day, really. So I just want to do a last call, final thoughts before we start to wrap up here about Witchcraft D&D, our game. Would listeners be interested in our game?
Life is short. Play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, genuinely.
It can feel hard, and I know you have to like find all the pieces and the people and stuff, but if you can find a way to play even a short game, it's so worth it with people that you trust. And I also just want to say, as like a person who does not see visuals, that was something we were talking about kind of before. I am one of those people that can't really see things in my mind. I'm a photographer. I read a lot of books. I play like text games, but I can't like hold an image very clearly in my mind. And so for me, D&D and playing with y'all and like being around people who can see things in that particular way has helped me clarify other kinds of sight. Like to Meg's point, I just wanted to say that if you're someone that's like, well, I can't see things, so I can't play, like it really does help. And I can say that from like lived experience. It makes a difference. I can't see things any better than I used to, but I am much more aware of like the subtle ways that magic and spirit do communicate with me in different ways. And it's really strengthened those skills in a way that I bring into every part of my own practice and spirit relationships. So just wanted to add that.
An important note.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Meg, other Meg, and Sasha, would you like to tell listeners where they can find you or anything you're working on right now that they could support?
Sure. Yeah, come round.
And we'll link it all in the show notes too.
So I guess my main thing right now is I am open for astrology readings, and we can talk about games and play and creation if you want. But that is, the link will be in the show notes, but I'm at third-sister.com. I'm on Instagram reluctantly. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, I write on Substack, The Gleaming Feast. But that'll be linked as well.
Yeah.
I am also regrettably back on Instagram.
I think we're all reluctantly on Instagram.
Enraged on
Sasha
Instagram.
Ravitch there. Patreon.com/Sasha Ravitch. And you can find it on my Instagram. I'm in the process of redoing my website, but I am open still for a few consultations for witchcraft, writing, and astrology, etc. And you could just find that by, say, book Sasha Ravitch in the scheduler come up. It's linked on Instagram, but the website is being fancily remodeled. So that'll have to wait.
Amazing. Thank you both for joining us here at Call Your Coven for a conversation that is so long in the making and that we will continue having over text after we stop recording. Imminently. And you, the listener, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back with regularly scheduled programming for our April forecast with our regular co-host, the numerologist, Bee Scolnick. Apparently, it's going to be April soon. Fake.
Whatever.
Stay safe. We love you. We'll see you next time.